Hello and welcome to the shop. I'm Jared and this is the Questionable Garage. And right here is our 1970 Plymouth Duster. Maybe try hard. I know a lot of you guys like Rusty. Maybe we can call him Rusty Jones, the old rust proofing. I really do like try hard. I think the wife came up with a good name because that's what we're doing. We are taking a car that we got for free from our friend Taylor Hull and turning it into the ultimate race car to take to Holley LS Fest, Holley Mo Party, and Holley Ford Fest and compete in Grand Champion, which is all forms of motorsport: road racing, autocross, drag racing. You gotta go on the countryside cruise. You gotta do the steer, start, stop challenge. You have to prove you have a very capable car. And I don't just wanna show up and wave and look pretty. Yeah, I always look pretty. But we are finally at the point that we get to start really putting it together and taking it apart a whole bunch. We've got to fabricate some things, but we can put a driveline in. Our very first driveline that we're going to put into the car, sitting right there, our 6.1 Hemi engine that we got from our friends at J&J Auto Wrecking. We are going to start with this engine because it's the one that will end up in there long term. I want everything to kind of fit it best. And it's also where we're going to base our transmission mount off of, because it's the one we have bolt-in brackets, so the LS and the Coyote get fabricated around it. But before we can put that in, we needed a transmission. And that's where I'm really, really thankful. You can see one of their boxes here. American Powertrain came in huge to help us out with this. They are a company that offers classic 5-speed swaps. They really can help you get, if you have a 4-speed or even some of the 3 speeds, get you into a modern transmission with overdrive to make it drive a lot nicer. One thing that's a huge help from them is they have all the information on what clutches and what flywheels and everything we need to work to make it happen. Another huge help comes from our friends Tremec. They make factory and aftermarket transmissions for everyone, and they make the transmission that we're putting in this car. Let's pull it out here. We're gonna do some unboxing. Oh, there we go. This right here, this is the TKX 5-speed overdrive transmission with Ford spline input. This is where their knowledge came in hugely helpful. We were planning to run a GM one, but bell housing, spacing, things like that are a little bit different. And their kits for the Mopars and the Fords use the Ford transmission. So we covered 66% of our engines, and we just had to figure out how to adapt the LS to it. We were able to find a catalog offering from QuickTime that works with this transmission. One of the biggest improvements that makes a TKX really great for swapping in these classic cars is it's no longer a top loader. On a TKO and the older style transmissions, it's basically a huge rectangle here, as it would have a large service plate that would come off the top to access and work things. Top loader. This modern design really gets quite petite, and it makes it easier to fit into a lot of different cars. So we need more than just a transmission. So we've got a whole lot of boxes to go through. All right, let's empty this box and get on to the rest. Oh, look, it's today's sponsor, Factor 75, with one of their ready to heat and eat meals. Now, if you haven't heard about Factor, Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, ready to heat and eat meals right to your doorstep. Their team of gourmet chefs work to create each meal using only ingredients with integrity to help you feel your best all day long. My favorite thing about Factor is it is incredibly easy. Take it out of the fridge, stab a couple holes in the top of the lid, throw it in the microwave for 2 minutes, let it rest, and enjoy something fresh and delicious. And when you start looking down at how much you're spending on meal delivery service, you'll find Factor's a very affordable option, because by the time you're done tipping a driver, meeting minimum orders, you're probably spending $17 for lunch, and Factor's gonna come in a lot cheaper than that. And they have menu plans that work whatever your dietary needs are. Keto friendly, calorie smart, vegetarian, high protein, whatever you want. Chef's choice. If you just want some of the best, finest meals that you can get out of your fridge, pick that option. You've got tons of selections, and they've got plenty of different add-on options to, spice your box up a little bit. Like if you want some shakes to help fill out the day and give you a little snack in between meals, you can select those too. Now, if you're ready to give Factor a try, head on over to factor75.com or click that link in the description box below. Enter code questionable50 on checkout and get 50% off your first Factor box. Seriously, I absolutely love Factor. I keep them in the fridge. The wife keeps a couple at the house so she can come home during lunch and enjoy the puppies and a really good meal. It gives her something to look forward to. Try it out. You're gonna love it, and add it to your daily routine. All right, so now that we are well fed, you need a lot more than just a transmission to fit this into the car, so let's start unboxing. I'll go with the one box I know. Ugh. Ooh, ow. All right, we got ourselves a bell housing kit. I'm assuming some of these are brackets and clutch fork boots. Here we go, is a Gen III Mopar small block bell housing set from Lakewood, right? Am I saying that right? Lakewood Industries. So this will slide in, and it has different adapter rings as needed to space and center it, but that will end up living something like that. So we got some clutch fluid. We have got the correct transmission fluid. Tremix do not take gear oil, and if you run gear oil, you're gonna have problems. We got some brake fluid. We got some clutch bolts. We've got ourselves a shifter. Bolt on right there. We have got, oh yeah, all that hard work painting underneath, and I might have to cut some of it up. Well, I know I have to cut some of it up. Here's another pressure plate. I wonder if I just have 3 sets of pressure plate bolts, given that I've got so many different engines here. Yeah, we've got a lot of extra bolts because we're running 3 different setups, so yeah, it makes sense that they sent all the fancy bolts. Okay. Oh, wait, one more thing. Ooh, shift knob. What do we got as a shift knob? Ooh. We got ourselves just a cool vintage looking white American powertrain. So this here is designed to go in on your cross member. And I actually do think we end up cutting a little bit of no, we don't cut the factory one out unless we need to on the top for clearance. But this goes on our torsion brace. And now we go through a bajillion clutch boxes. And by bajillion, we got 3 of them. Box 1, did we get it right first try? Is this my Hemi clutch? Oh, here's my hydraulics kit. We got a hydraulic clutch kit. All right, GM on the box, so I'm gonna predict box 1 is LS. Ugh. That doesn't say, but considering it came with an LS clutch. Strike 1. Number 2. GM. I'm very confused. And this one has numbers. Okay, this has different set of numbers. Oh. And this one says CL4. Let me look up, figure out which ones we need. And then we'll make this look a little prettier, and we're going to talk about what we've got to do to the Hemi to get it bolted in. All right, I got everything figured out. It turns out when you get 3 of everything, it sometimes is a little confusing, but obviously if you are ordering this kit, you're not as crazy as I am, and you're just gonna have 1 of everything, so it's easier to organize. But we've got it all laid out on the table. We've got our Ford clutch, we've got our LS clutch, we've got our Hemi clutch down here, and each of these are running what they call the dual friction, where you have the smaller surface area, much more aggressive side, and then a more traditional side. What that's gonna do is make the car feel pretty good on the street while giving it the holding power we're gonna need. Again, we've got one steel QuickTime housing because that is the only way we could run this particular trans setup, get it all doing what it's supposed to do. And then we've got a pair of the Lakewood bell housings. This one just released, the Coyote fitment one. We've got our Hemi one that we showed earlier. We've got our mount, our trans sitting there. We've got just a few of the hydraulic components there. Now, for this first install, none of the hydraulics are gonna go in because the Hemi's not gonna stay there. It's going in to mock everything up, so we need the bell housing on it, and obviously we'll have the transmission cross member on it. Before we get to that point, we're gonna go ahead and set up a camera on our Hemi. We need to do an alternator relocation. We need to put a lower pressure power steering pump. Holley has one. Otherwise you run restrictors, because if you run a Gen 3 Hemi pump on a Mustang 2 rack like we have on the QA1 front subframe, you're gonna blow it up. So we've got a whole pump to keep that working. And then I think we actually marry everything together, try to get it in. The goal for today and this episode is the engine in the hole. So we are set up for plumbing and a bunch of stuff on the next episode. So that's what we're gonna get set up to do. We're gonna swap out some motor mounts and get bell housings bolted together and in the hole. Fingers crossed, it's all gonna go really well. So before we can worry about installing the TKX into the car, we need to make sure we have a bell housing fitted to the transmission. Inside the Lakewood kit, they have 3 different centering rings. You just need to match up the correct one to fit over your input bearing retainer, and fits and centers your bell housing. Now, one thing that is going to make getting everything fitted really well with the Hemi first is part of the QA1 K-member, they include motor mounts. Now, these motor mounts include rubber bushings and a solid center sleeve so you don't collapse rubber bushings too far, and it's a tight fit even with some lube. So I had to run back into the background there behind all those boxes and use the press to get that sleeve pressed in correctly. And with the bushings pressed together, it's just a matter of unbolt the stock mounts and bolt the QA1s right back in place. Here I am pulling off the factory power steering pump because if you do not change it out and run a restrictor, you're going to blow up your brand new Mustang steering rack. So Holley offers this Saginaw kit that bolts directly into place and allows you to have power steering and not blow it up. Now, it may seem really awkward to see someone reading installation instructions, but trust me, they help most of the time. So it made sure I got the right torque specs and used the right type of Loctite as I'm assembling it. But one thing I did run into, based on their instructions, they say put it all together and then put the hard line on. But as I found out, it was a whole lot easier to actually put the hard line on before bolting the pump onto the adapter bracket. I cannot stress this enough. Do not hammer your power steering pump pulleys on. You will break them, you will damage them, and you're gonna have a bad time. Also, if you try to warranty a pump that you hammered together, it's very obvious that you did it and your warranty is gonna be denied. You can go to O'Reilly, rent the tool, and return it. Get all your money back. It's free, take the time. This is one of those things, don't be questionable. Hammers don't belong. And while a rear sump oil pan can work on some A bodies, it's a little bit too tall in the front, so we need to go to a conversion oil pan. It's a mid-sump and it has a very low clearance in the front to clear the steering rack. And with the oil pan off, I haven't quite noticed something yet that I will hear shortly. Not YouTube clickbait, it was totally unexpected.
don't know what it is, but it's built.
Well, I kind of had to interrupt us real quick there. We found something we absolutely had no expectation of when I pulled the oil pan off to get ready to put our Holley mid-sump pan on. As soon as I pulled the oil pan off, here, let me flip this over. That is what the windage tray looked like. On a Hemi, the gasket is also your windage tray. And, you know, your first thought might be, oh no, it's thrown a connecting rod and is blown up. But that is a very deliberate thing. And you pull that off and turn it over, and you can see, once again, that was a very deliberate modification. Why would you need to modify a windage tray that normally fits perfectly fine? Some of you might already be commenting. Comment below. Why would we have to beat that up? Well, I didn't. Why did someone beat that up? So then I got to looking in here, and I can see a bunch of paint marks, meaning someone has been inside this engine absolutely. And then we look at the engine block, and if you look right there, someone's had to kind of cut and clearance the engine block for some reason. Look at that. That's not normal. And then also, we get to looking, and my rod bolts have ARP stampings on them. And there's aftermarket balancing on a crankshaft. Some of you might be figuring out what exactly has been done. This is a fully forged bottom end. It's not just a modified stock crank. That is a manly crank. That is a 5-digit part number, meaning it's custom. I did some digging. I've been able to find our pistons. They're an Icon forged piston, 10 thousandths over stock bore, normal pin heights, nothing too crazy there. I've not been able to confirm the connecting rods, but I've been able to measure a 4.05 inch stroke. All of that together means this is a 426 inch stroker Hemi, not a 6.1 liter, a 7 liter. Sometimes you get a bonus. We knew our LS in the series. It was modified, had a camshaft intake. That was a known. This was supposed to be a bone stock Hemi. Instead, we have a 7 liter powerhouse, which kind of spoils, the fun of, all the mostly stock engines, who's going to be the best. There's no replacement for displacement. This is a beast, which adds a couple complications. I need to be extra careful. I need to do a bunch of measuring and testing with the new windage tray from Holley, make sure there's no contact in there. I am trying my best with a borescope to find any specs on a camshaft, because if you have a stroker, you don't have a stock camshaft, basically, we've got an insane hot rod. Which, I'm kind of happy this is the engine that's staying long-term in the car, because it's going to be stupid fun. So, I'm going to do a little bit more research. I'm going to kind of fiddle. I'm going to spend the next probably hour and a half making sure that windage tray fits perfect. But what a bonus! Most of those kits start about $4,000 plus the machine work plus. This. Sometimes you win on the used part lottery, and 7 liter Hemi fun. Oh yeah. All right, so now that we have just discovered we have a potentially 600 horsepower plus stroker motor, we need to test fit everything and rotate that engine over a whole lot to make sure that surprise stroker crank is not going to require any additional clearancing on the aftermarket Holley windage tray. And with the internal baffles installed in the oil pan, we apply a little bit of silicone on the joining surfaces of the gasket to make sure we don't have any oil leaks. Drop that pan down, fit all the bolts, and torque it to spec. Yes, it may seem a bit odd, but we are torquing these things to spec and following the pattern to re-torque the oil pan. Similar to LS and most of these modern cast aluminum oil pans that actually add block structure, there is a specific pattern that you should torque these down to ensure they don't leak and adhere properly. And with the engine sling bolted onto our Gen 3 Hemi, we get it picked up, slung over, and dropped into our duster. And it's starting to finally look like a car as we get this thing bolted in. And with the bell housing pulled off the transmission and bolted to the engine, it is time to test fit and get that transmission up and into the hole. You know, you could use a transmission jack for things like this. Instead, I lifted it up there. It's quicker and easier for me. Probably not for my back, but it's in. And with the transmission fitted, it is time to jack it up and put the transmission crossmember in. And that's when I discovered my brand new floor is too tight and I'm gonna have to cut it out so I can put in the big aftermarket transmission hump. You know, good thing I didn't just paint it and make it look nice. More welding, yay. Well, all right, let's get you guys caught up. And I guess, you know, we had to hit some problems, you know, finding that we've got, you know, like a $7,000 built 426 cubic inch engine instead of that little 6.1 we thought we had. You know, we just had to pay a little bit back to the car gods, and we paid for it on this transmission. Getting it in, it is in. We have a TKX transmission in. We have our 7-liter Hemi in. But if you come back and look, you'll notice there's daylight coming in. Sadly, the transmission tunnel wasn't big enough. I thought that was going to actually end up being a real possibility. I kind of hoped I could just beat it a little bit with a hammer. Did not work out. So I have ordered one of the big humps that are designed for the TKO swaps, which will then get welded in and painted. You know, again, what's a little more welding and painting, right? But we've got that in. We've got our transmission cross member fitted. So everything is in position that we can start looking at plumbing and exhaust work and steering and cooling. And oh yeah, also we had to cut all of the focus. There, set your light for that for me, camera. Right there, that's what we're looking at. Had to cut the brackets off that were for a clutch cable. They didn't quite work with our particular manifold setup, but now starter can go in, manifold's gonna do its thing, that oil pan fits just right, and we have a Hemi in the duster. There's only, you know, plumbing and 2 more engines to fit, but we are making real progress. We had a huge win in ending up with the built engine. It's always fun. You know, sometimes you end up with a bad engine out of a junkyard and you got to warranty it, and sometimes you end up with a very expensive one. You never know what you're gonna get. But that's gonna do it. We're where I wanted to be for the day. You know, well, we're a day late on it, but I wanted that transmission in to kind of cue us up for the next episode of lots of transformations. We are going to get cooling systems in. We're going to start getting fuel system in. We're going to just do a tremendous amount of work front to back and introduce you to our other duster. It's a lot to do. We're going to make it, but there's a lot to do still. I appreciate you guys. Actually, you know what? Let's do it. I had some footage. We flew out to Seattle and actually helped our good friend Taylor Hull as a crew member on his professional Formula Drift team. And initially, I wanted to make it its whole entire episode until I realized when you're on a small crew, you don't have time to be a YouTuber. All we're doing is working on cars. So had some fantastic fans recognize me out there, came up. I gotta say, I am incredibly appreciative of how respectful all of you guys are. I feel like we've got a great community. Comment section is really good and healthy, and I appreciate all of you. And it shows the caliber of people you are. When you saw me working, you recognized I'm there as a job. I'm not there being a YouTuber. We had a quick conversation, and you guys respected that I needed to work on the car. So you guys are awesome. Appreciated getting to sign a couple things, running tires back and forth. I thought you wanted a driver, but nope, you wanted me. So appreciate all of you. But just a really quick recap. First day on our very first practice, power steering failed immediately and had to completely change out the pump. And then Andrew, Ernie, and I working together got Taylor a freaking hot rod. We did a lot of changes. The car's driving better than ever. Maybe didn't get a qualifying result he deserved, but it was okay. Line up for a top 32 battle, goes into the burnout box to start the battle, and it broke a jack shaft belt. It's a small belt that pretty much never breaks. It's there to make serpentine belt and blower belt changes incredibly easy, but it on itself is nearly impossible to do in any quick period of time. If you're familiar with Formula Drift, you get 1 5-minute competition timeout. So the crew came over with the 5-minute clock. We talked a game plan, got it ready, and a jack shaft belt's a 10 to 15-minute job, cold. This engine's scorching hot, and we got it done in 5 minutes and 32 seconds. Which wasn't good enough. So it was kind of a bummer, but it was a ton of fun. So here's just a quick little bit of footage of us, you know, being a pit crew. So it doesn't quite always go as planned, but hey, we had a lot of fun, and I'm kind of talking to Taylor to try to see if I can't do more next year. I kind of missed the crew side of things. I love driving, but it's also really awesome to kind of crew a car, help with setup, and help a friend compete at a very high level. It's just fun. So we're going to actually end up ordering a couple more parts real quick, hit a bunch of overnights, and we're gonna hit you with a whole lot of videos coming because I've got a lot to do and not much time to do it. How it usually goes. But I'm Jared reminding you guys to always make questionable choices unless it comes to your belts. Change them preemptively, maybe. I don't know. That probably wouldn't have saved us anyway. Who knows? We'll see you next time. Bye.